Hello, dear chess fans. Thank you for your patience. The mailman has just arrived. I was waiting for this package the whole day, and of course, he chose the one and only moment when I'm on air. But at least now I have the package and I can begin the show. Thank you for waiting for it. Today's topic is the continuation of last week's topic, and I'm very happy that we will have two brilliant games to see. Actually, if you follow me on Facebook or Twitter, you might have guessed already who will be the main heroes of today's show. If not, you can check the tweet or Facebook post that I have published roughly an hour ago. And I will reveal the names. I think I should by this stage. Bobby Fischer and Mikhail Tal. We will see two games by these two chess legends. And since you probably know these games, I will barely stop and ask you to guess the moves. But what we will do instead of guessing the moves and calculate many things is to use our brain and try to understand the principles behind those moves. Why those brilliant moves were possible? What are the circumstances in the position that make those sacrifices possible? So we will try to understand the position and see how you can do the same in your games. So let's begin with Bobby Fischer's game. And where's my chessboard? There you go. I hope you can see it now. You definitely know this game. It's the game of the century, the game of the 20th century. This is how it is named. Bobby Fischer was only 13 when he played this game. Only 13. Yes, he was a wunderkind, but his successful year started at the age of 14. So when he was 13, this is a year before the big boom of Bobby Fischer, he was not supposed to be that strong. So his victory over Byrne, who was one of the best US players at the time, was quite a surprise, and he won the Brilliancy Prize with this game. He did not finish very well in this tournament. In 1956 in New York, it was the Rosenwald Trophy. He scored 4.5 out of 11 points, if I'm correct. So it's not like a big achievement, but this game already showed that Bobby Fischer, 13-year-old Bobby Fischer, was going to be somebody incredibly strong, and soon he became the world champion. So let's see the game. I'm sorry that I cannot flip the board, so we are playing with the black pieces, we are watching it from the white side. I hope it's still possible to understand. Here, white could have played e4 and then it is the King's Indian, but instead Byrne went for bishop f4, and after d5 we transposed to the Grunfeld defense. We have a great video series on the Grunfeld by Peter Swidler. I'm sure that you know it, here on Chess 24. And after queen b3, d takes, queen takes, and c6, e4, knight bd7, normal developing moves, rook d1, knight b6, queen c5, bishop g4. In this position, Byrne made a mistake, and that was playing bishop g5. So since you probably know the game, as I said, I don't want you to guess the move. Well, you can try. If you don't know the game, you can try to guess the move. But first, let's see what is wrong with bishop g5. In this position, the normal move is bishop e2. So why do you think bishop g5 is wrong? What's wrong with this in general? Why shall white or black never play like this? He has played bishop f4 and now bishop g5. Let's see who can answer that very quickly. And that is indeed the correct answer. Bishop g5 is wrong because white is not developing and white has moved the bishop twice. In the beginning of the game, this is something we want to avoid. We want to develop all our pieces, we want to castle, and then you can start maneuvering with the same pieces. You can start improving the location of those pieces, but white doesn't have time to waste here. His king is still on e1, and he will be punished for this bishop g5 move. Later, of course, as I said, bishop e2 was played in the games a few years later, so now this is theory, bishop e2, but at the time of this game, this position was still new. So in this position, Byrne played bishop g5 because he liked this move, and Bobby Fischer punished him with the move knight a4. Wow, what's the point of this move? We said that bishop g5 was a waste of time, white was not developing, so we want to punish him. We want to punish him for not castling, for not developing, and knight a4 is just the way to do it, because let's sum up quickly what we learned last week. The 3 rules that you should follow when the opponent's king is in the middle of the board, when he did not castle. First of all, you should open the position, open as many lines, files, diagonals, anything you can open them. Secondly, bring as many attacking pieces as possible. You want to attack that king in the middle of the board after having opened the position, so you need a lot of pieces. And third, and that's the most important, without this third rule, without this third principle, you cannot really achieve the first 2. And this is to act quickly. You cannot give time to your opponent to finish development. So very important, take the initiative, act quickly. Sometimes you will need to sacrifice material, many times pawns, a few times even a piece, but it's just to make sure that the opponent doesn't castle his king will not escape from the middle of the board. So knight a4, Bobby Fischer takes the initiative immediately, and if white captures this knight, then we will take on e4. That's the point of the sacrifice. So he deflected the knight from the defense of the e4 pawn, and now doesn't really matter where the queen goes. Let's say queen c1, queen a5 check comes and something will drop. So black wins back the piece, and at the same time he has taken a pawn and is attacking the white king. So this is brilliant. If we see knight c3 loses material because we capture on f3 and then we capture the bishop. And if he wants to save the bishop, of course, then the problem is that, for instance, well, bishop d2, then the knight will drop. So the point of knight a4 is this beautiful motif that after knight takes e4, we will give this check on a5, and white cannot do anything about losing material. If he goes queen b4, then the problem is once again that we can capture on f3 and then take the bishop. So there's just no way to keep the material on the board. So after knight a4, white cannot take this knight. He has to move the queen once again. He has just made 2 bishop moves, and now he's forced to move the queen once again. That's bad news for him, but we should keep the initiative going, and that knight is hanging. So of course Bobby played knight a4 because he wanted to take this knight, wanted to get rid of this knight, and then he wanted to win this pawn on e4. But wait a second, he's winning a pawn, but at the same time this e7 pawn is hanging. Isn't he just blundering? The pawn is back, there's no pawn up anymore, and he's even losing an exchange. Like, what is going on? And no, Bobby Fischer did not blunder. He wanted to give up the e7 pawn. He wanted to give up his rook on f8 because he wants to open the e file. That's where the white king is, so it is all worth it. Remember, you want to open the position, you want to act quickly and bring pieces to attack on those open files. We need the e file. So bishop takes e7, and after queen b6, yes, white can take this f8 rook, and now I will ask you, how would you take back on f8? Because this is not the game, so you might not know this by heart, what would happen in this line. I want you to answer how to take on f8. If we take on f8, or you would make another move instead, I don't know. Tell me right now. Very good job, guys. I think it was Cohen who said it first, but also I see other users. Let me even sort to be Trotters, O Sicilian, Ludesher. You've all said bishop takes f8, and that's true because remember the third and most important principle, you need to act quickly. Bishop takes f8 goes with the tempo, we attack the queen on a3, so that is the reason why we want to capture with the bishop. We do not care that this bishop was really nice on the long diagonal. What we care about is time. Let's just have a look at what would happen if rook takes f8. It's not like we are losing, we haven't blundered anything, but we did give one tempo, a very important tempo to white, so he can move this bishop, and next move is castle kingside. Ouch, we are on exchange down, so we cannot really permit this happen. Let's go back to a position of bishop takes f8. Bishop takes f8, very important. We gain a tempo, and after the queen moves, what would you do here? What do you think about trading queens? And let me just add that this is a tricky question. All right, good job once again. It was a tricky question because in all the shows where we are learning about attack, I always say that you never want to trade queens when you are attacking. On the other hand, the defending person wants to trade queens because that's the most important attacking piece. Once the queens are off of the board, your king is safer. But not in this position. In this position, what matters a lot more is time. We cannot waste time on moving the queen away. Imagine we want to keep the queens on the board because we remember that we should keep the queens on the board. And then, once again, white manages to develop the bishop. He's attacking the f7 pawn and he's about to castle kingside. Yes, it's true that it's not so safe on the king side either after bishop takes f3, destroying the opponent's pawn structure on the king side. But let's just not give him extra time for development. So in this position, what we care about is the e file. It's a lot more important than keeping the queens on the board. So whether you said rook e8 or queen takes b3 and then rook e8, the idea is basically the same, that in this position, white has no good move. He cannot prevent both knight takes c3 and knight g3 check. One of them will appear on the board. He cannot move the king away from the e file, and moves like bishop e2 will not help anyway because we go knight takes c3 and everything is hanging. The bishop on e2, the rook on d1. This is really bad. Another way to carry this attack out is by playing first knight takes c3. We attack the rook and then rook e8 would be a check. But sometimes the threat is more important than carrying it out. Actually, maybe not sometimes, but always. Well, I should run some statistics on that, but here it is much more important to threaten with knight takes c3 than to actually play it, because if you go knight takes c3 first, knight takes c3 first, the rook goes away, then rook e8. This position is still good for black. We have an advantage, we have the initiative, but the king has a square on d2. If you compare this position to playing rook e8 immediately, then you see that the king cannot escape ever, because our knight from e4 is taking away the d2 square from the white king. So compare the moves that you consider. Sometimes capturing and attacking is not always a priority. Sometimes the threat is more important than actually making that move happen. And here, after a move like rook c1, we will now move the knight. You can take on f3 first and then knight g3 check, and we grab the rook on h1. So that would be just a piece up for black. Therefore, in the position after, let's go back to, where were we? We were discussing bishop takes f8. Oh, by the way, I saw Cohen asking why not queen e8 in this position. It's true that here bishop takes f8 would be a horrible move after bishop takes f8. We have the same threat, a discovered attack on the e5, so it would make sense that if bishop takes f8, why would we not want to have the queen on e8? But just think about this for a moment. Is bishop takes f8 obligatory? Is the bishop hanging on e7? If the answer to those questions is no, that means that in this position, white can choose a different move. He can try to develop. I don't know, bishop c4 is good, perhaps it's also bad. Or he can try to bring a piece to the e file and then threaten to capture the rook because it is trapped on f8. So Bobby Fischer plays queen b6 because the queen is a lot more active on b6. Or the other good move in this position is queen d5. Any active square for the queen, because he will not wait for the opponent to capture on f8. He can choose to capture or not capture. In the game, Byrne did not capture the rook. He went bishop c4. And here, Bobby Fischer played knight takes c3. And once again, the reason behind this move is that after bishop c4, the opponent is about to castle. So he did not care about our rook, but he wants to finish development. We cannot give him time. We cannot just let him do it. So don't think about slow moves. Don't think about just moving the rook. Like rook e8 is a natural move, and it's not a bad move because even after castle kingside, as I said, in many positions the king will suffer even on the king side. But hey, we don't want this to happen. We don't want to give any chance for the opponent to survive. So in this position, Bobby Fischer keeps hitting. He keeps the initiative going by playing knight takes c3. And the idea is that if queen takes, then this bishop will be hanging. So now rook e8 is a tempo. Compare rook e8, this rook e8, to playing rook e8 a move before without knight takes c3 when the bishop is not hanging and white can castle. And yes, we could take on c3, maybe, unless we are bonding bishop c5. Sometimes we should watch out for counter tactics, because yes, the bishop was hanging on e7 if the queen would have moved to c3, but after bishop c5, our queen is hanging, our knight is hanging. No, perhaps we are getting lost here already. So just make sure that you play everything with a tempo when you have the initiative and you want to keep the initiative. So knight takes c3 is the right move. If queen takes c3, we go rook e8, and it doesn't matter if white castles here. I mean, sometimes you cannot completely avoid it, but by playing castle here after rook takes e7, what you see on the board is that black has a pawn up, so material advantage. We also have the pair of bishops and better pieces. So all in all, white's position is a lot better. Sometimes we cannot completely avoid castling for the opponent, but the price for castling for white was to lose material and have worse pieces. So it was worth it. It was worth knight takes c3 after queen takes rook f8. Let's just see, what if queen e3, trying to protect this bishop, keeping the piece on the board, but it doesn't help because first we destroy the opponent's pawn structure, and then after queen c7 we will take this bishop anyway. So here it's true that there's no There's no pair of bishops anymore, but just look at the white king. This king side is horrible. Pawn up and lot better pieces and horrible king for white. So this is bad once again. After knight takes c3, Byrne played bishop c5, because this is what I was saying before, that yeah, this bishop will be hanging on e7, but just watch out for tactical motives for the opponent too. After bishop c5, two pieces are hanging, our queen and the knight, and what is going on? Yes, we have a check on e8, but after king f1, our pieces are still hanging, right? So we are losing material here for the sake of a check on e8. And yes, that was a beautiful check, but the king on f1 is not so bad. It couldn't castle and it will never castle, but it's not so easy to get access to this white king. So we cannot just move the queen and say, okay, you will capture my knight, so I'm a piece down, but I'm attacking. No, black is not attacking here. It's not like a big deal, this position for black. We have the e-file and we force the white king to go to f1, but where are the rest of the attacking pieces? Where can we give a check? Where can we start attacking the white king? No, this king on f1 is pretty safe. So for the price of a piece, this attack, no. Doesn't work. Don't go for it. After king f1, what Bobby Fischer had to see was a brilliant move. And it's a move that I'm sure that many of you know this move, but try to understand the reason behind the move, why this move works. And the move is bishop e6. So just once again, let's sum up. Your queen is hanging, your knight is hanging, and you just make a solid retreating bishop move. Yes, this is what Bobby Fischer did, and why did he do it? What's the point? He's threatening to capture the bishop on c4, but come on, that's a bishop, and we are giving up the queen. Yes, he is doing that. In the game, bishop takes b6 happened, so that's what we will see afterwards. But before we go for that, let's just calculate the rest of the possibilities. What if, because there are so many opportunities here for white, you need to calculate all these moves. Before you play bishop e6, you need to make sure that you calculate bishop takes b6, you should calculate bishop takes e6, you should calculate queen takes c3, and you should also see what happens if just the white bishop moves away from c4, like bishop d3. Let's start with queen takes c3. I mean, you should start with bishop takes b6. Don't get me wrong, but that is what happened in the game. So first we go through the rest of the variations. What if queen takes c3? Now it's your turn to tell me the move. That was quick. After queen takes c3, the right move is what you guys have said. Queen takes c5. The pawn is pinned on d4. This bishop on the fianchetto bishop is very powerful, and in this position you can see that after d takes c5, bishop takes c3. Yes, once again the queens are off of the board and even this bishop will be exchanged, but this is a position with a pawn up and very active pieces. So this is pretty much hopeless against a strong player. And Bobby Fischer was already a strong player at the age of 13, yet not the very best. By the way, I wanted to add that this tournament that he played, it was an invitational tournament. The 12 best US players played in this Rosenwald trophy, but he was not among the very best. He was not actually in the top 12 by rating, but still the organizers invited Bobby Fischer because they saw the potential in him, and I think this game completely proved the organizers' choice for picking Bobby Fischer instead of somebody with a higher rating for this tournament, because wow, he just completely crushed his opponent. But let's see how. After bishop e6, as I said, bishop takes b6 is the game, and that should be your first line of calculation. But let's run through the other moves. But if bishop takes e6, once again, your time to tell me the answer. Well then everybody, the correct answer is of course queen b5 check. We don't care about this bishop on e6. All we wanted is to deflect the bishop from the a6 f1 diagonals after bishop takes e6, not bishop takes b6, that's the game. After bishop takes e6, we are very happy that we can give queen b5 check, not only to save our queen, but also because after king g1, we still don't care about the bishop, but we do care about this beautiful check on e2, king f1, knight g3, and I'm sure that all of you know how to give the smothered mate queen f1 check, and after rook takes f1, knight e2, a typical smothered mate position. Yes, this is one of the lines you had to calculate before you resign, and with the queen down. If you don't see what's the point of bishop e6, you cannot play it. You have to go through all these lines. So in the position of king f1, bishop e6, bishop takes b6, bishop takes e6, queen takes e3, and bishop d3. Those should be the main lines to calculate, as I said. So let's just stick to what I mentioned, bishop d3. Now in this position, what shall we do? Because White doesn't want to give up this diagonal. He doesn't take our queen. He doesn't allow bishop takes c4. And our knight and our queen are still hanging. So two pieces. How can we save these pieces? You should tell me the answer. Very good job, guys. The answer is knight b5. That's the only way to save both pieces. So knight b5 attacks the white queen. In case of bishop takes b6, we just capture on a3 and we are very happy. Yes, once again the queens are off of the board, but look what remains. We have a pawn up. The bishop is hanging on b6, the king is on f1. Weird. Also the a2 pawn will at some point fall, not with the knight on a3. Don't blunder your knight. So sometimes these moves, bishop takes a2, can be painful if there's a rook coming, grabbing one of the pieces. But still, this is a pawn up and very good pieces, very good position. So the main question, and this is really the key behind bishop e6, what if white takes our queen? Because a queen is a queen, right? Bishop takes c4, that was our plan, but this is only a check, isn't it? King g1, and we should keep going. We are a queen down, so you better give as many checks as possible, and you better capture as much material as possible. Of course, knight takes d1 is possible too, but why not grab material with some checks? So knight e2 check, king f1 only move, and now knight takes d4. The king has to go to g1. We have grabbed the pawn. It's only a pawn, but it could be an important pawn, opening the diagonal for our bishop. Now we go back to e2 with the knight. The king has to go to f1, and yeah, we could go for a perpetual check. I mean, not perpetual, repeating moves, repetition of moves with knight d4 and then going back all the time, or any other knight jumps. But what we wanted is to go to c3 with a check and then capture the rook later on d1. Before we see what happened in the game, because this is the line from the game, I just wanted to add that white couldn't avoid this. After knight takes d4 check, remember that we did not capture the rook, we gave a check on e2, forced king f1, and after knight takes d4, if white goes rook d3, which seems to be tempting to stop those checks coming, then a takes b6 is a horribly strong move. The last piece, the last undeveloped piece joins the attack. Now the a file is open for the rook. All the black pieces are active, and there's just no way to get out of the threats. For instance, queen c3, knight takes f3, and white has to resign because you don't have a good move in this position. You cannot just hang on in this position because the queen cannot go away from the e1 square. There's no queen c4 because of rook e1 mate. And if you cannot do that, then bishop takes d3 will come anyway, and then rook e1. So you have to resign. This position is completely lost. That's why after knight takes d4, there's no rook d3. Just remember how beautiful it is when you bring the very last piece, the very last undeveloped soldier of your army. This rook was not doing anything on a8, and now suddenly the whole black army is complete. All the black pieces are active. This is how you should play. Not only when attacking, not only when attacking the uncastled king or attacking in general, but always bring all your pieces. They need to be active. They need to work together in cooperation with one another. So place your pieces as well as possible in any position, always in all your games. That's what you should aim for. After knight takes d4, king g1, knight e2, we've seen these checks, knight c3, king g1, and here once again, Bobby Fischer could capture the rook on d1, but he still doesn't do it because he says, hey, I want to have this rook, the a8 rook, as active as possible. This was not doing anything, as I said, on a8, but after opening the a file, wow, now we have once again all the black pieces working. Queen b4, and well, you just need to find a move that defends the bishop, the hanging bishop on c4 with a tempo, because remember, you want to keep the initiative going. We want to capture the rook on d1, but first we protect the bishop with a tempo, rook a4, and after queen b6, knight takes d1. This position is lost for white. Black has a lot of pieces for the queen. Just have a look. We have a rook and a pair of bishops for the queen. So apart from the material, which is already more than a queen, you also see that there's this white king on g1, a rook on h1. Like, how is this rook going to develop ever? You need to lose a lot of time for making moves like h3, king h2, and then bringing the rook. If we allow white to do this, because maybe he will be just lost right now on the spot. There's no mate, but as I said, by material, now even 2 pawns, so rook, pair of bishops, and 2 pawns. That's what we have for the queen, and very active pieces. So this position is completely lost. And there's a story about this game which says that Byrne, somewhere around this point of the game, asked his colleagues what they thought if instead of resigning, he kept on playing as a sort of praise towards Bobby Fischer's play, because everybody knew that White is lost here. Byrne himself knew that he's lost, but he thought that Bobby Fischer, 13-year-old Bobby Fischer, played so brilliantly that it would be a pity to end this game with resigning. So he kept on playing just to allow his opponent, a 13-year-old boy, mate him. And I think that's something that, as an adult, nobody likes to lose to kids. Like when you're a grown-up, you just really don't like losing to kids. And I know people who don't like losing to women. But anyway, instead of behaving like this and rushing out of the playing hall, Byrne kept on playing so that a 13-year-old boy could mate him. Let's see how the game ended, because it's not made yet, but some very logical moves. A rook has been exchanged, but still we have so much material on the board. Bishop d5. This is a beautiful spot for the bishop. And we have the rook on the second rank. Very best spot. All we need to do at some point is to activate this bishop. We have to get out of the pin. Bobby Fischer did that. Not immediately, but bringing the knight to the center, then pushing his pawn. He's not in a rush because White hasn't got any real threats, so he just protected his pawn. Then he avoided h5 too, so he just wants to make sure that White doesn't get any silly counterplay by playing h5, and then who knows what. I mean, the position is winning for Black. He could play whatever he wants, but he just simply thought already at the age of 13 in such a prophylactic way that he is winning, but he's not in a rush, so he prevents everything before any danger happens. h5, and now when there's no more threat from White's side, he plays king g7, moving out of the pin. So next move is bishop d6 or bishop c5, and the game is over. King g1, bishop c5 check, king f1, knight g3 check, king e1, bishop b4, king d1. You see the mate is about to be created. King c1, knight e2, king b1, knight c3, king c1, and rook c2. A beautiful mate. And I think we should all thank Mr. Byrne for allowing this mate instead of resigning some moves ago, because it is a brilliant game, and this 13-year-old boy, who later on showed the world that he would become the very best in the world, really deserved to win this game in a beautiful way, because he played in a beautiful way. What we should learn from this game, I hope you remember those points, when, first of all, the only mistake maybe in this game was this bishop g5 move, but it was a big enough mistake against Bobby Fischer, because White, as you pointed out, has lost time. Made a bishop move once again. You shouldn't move your pieces twice unless it's an opening where the center is closed. So in this position, there's already a semi-open d file, and also maybe Black can push at some point e5 or c5 depending on how the pieces are. So since this position is not closed, White has to be in a rush with his development. He should go bishop e2 and then castle as soon as possible. After bishop g5, Bobby Fischer took the initiative with knight a4, a brilliant move, which is thanks to this motive with knight takes e4 and then queen a5 check. Remember that this was not possible because of knight e4 and then queen a5, winning material, winning back the material. So knight a4 forced White to move the queen once again, not developing, and after taking this c3 knight and grabbing the pawn on e4, the idea was that yes, he's losing an exchange, but he wanted to open the e file. Remember that we want to open the position when the opponent's king is in the center. You want to get access to that king, you want to bring as many pieces as possible, and you want to act quickly. And in this game, even like this, that Byrne didn't take the rook, Fischer kept the initiative going by playing knight takes c3 here, and not the natural looking rook e8, which is also good, but not as good as knight takes c3. After queen takes, rook e8, we will win the piece back, and if not, queen takes, but bishop c5. This is where brilliancy, just complete brilliancy, the most beautiful move in the world perhaps. Check, and bishop e6 with two pieces hanging. a retreating bishop move, bishop e6, and black is winning. We still have one more game to see, so before I start praising this game even more, let's move on to another game from the very same year. And this is a game by Mikhail Tal. I saw that we have a Chess24 user here in the chat following the show, Mikhail Tal. So I'm glad that we have a Tal among the followers of the show, among the premium members here. And also, as I said, this is a game of Mikhail Tal, but from 56. And remember that he became world champion in 1960. So yes, he was already a very strong player, but he wasn't the world champion at the time of the game. The world champion was still Botvinnik. So let's see what was the opening. Najdorf. And if you want to learn how to play the Najdorf with the black pieces, you should definitely check the video series of my colleague, Miss Tactics, Sopika Guramishvili. She has made an excellent job, a complete repertoire with the black pieces on the Najdorf. So we will see the poison pawn variation where black grabs the pawn on b2 for the price of some time. Let's just see what he has done. Queen b6, queen takes b2, and queen takes a3. Those are three queen moves to grab a pawn. And there's nothing wrong with this because this is theory. By now it's theory. Back then there were not many games at all in this position, but now we know that it is possible to play like this. So if you are a materialistic player, if you love grabbing pawns, then you can play queen b6, queen takes b2, and with precise defense you should be fine. But as I said back then, there were only a few games in this position. e5 was played by Keres in 1955, and a year later this position happened in Tal's game too, but in Keres's game, the answer was knight fd7 in this position, and here instead Tolus went for d takes e5. Tal, of course, takes back on e5, and after knight fd7, let's just think for a moment why we played e5. What are the advantages of pushing e5? I'll give you some time, but just very quickly. Alright, let's sum up. What are the advantages of pushing e5? Actually, I could have asked it here without d takes and f takes, but I think in this position it can be seen even more that first of all, as you guys have said, e5 gains space. We have gained quite a lot of space in the center, and at the same time we have freed the e4 square for the knight, and actually that's what Tal played. He just jumped onto this beautiful central square, knight e4. Now look at the minor pieces white has. This bishop on g5 is very annoying, and the knight on e4 about to jump to d6 perhaps in the future, and another knight on d4. So very well placed, very beautiful minor pieces. But before we start talking more about that exact position, let's just also mention that we haven't only gained time and the e4 square for the knight, but also we have opened the f file. So yes, our king is also in the center, but we are attacking, and this is going to be a game where we perhaps will not castle. I don't know. If you know the game, you know what I mean. So we will soon see that, but for now, let's just say that we have gained space, the e4 square for the knight, and also the f file for the rook in the future. Not right now, but it's good to open files, lines, diagonals, when the opponent's king is in the center, even if iron is in the center too, but not under attack. So all this, we can do all this pushing e5, opening the f file, having the king on e1, still we can do it because black doesn't have any developed pieces. If in this position, the only active piece would not just be the queen on a3, that's his only active piece, just look at the board. Imagine that instead of this position, black would have a bishop on g4, a knight on d5, I don't know, a rook on c8. Like, if he had his pieces developed, then their pieces would be very active. Of course, what I said just didn't make sense, but in that circumstance, we could not do this. We could not just allow that our king is in the middle of the board too, and we are opening the position. We can do this because black doesn't have developed pieces. So knight e4, the question, of course, is what happens to this poor e5 pawn? It's good that we have gained so much by pushing e5, but isn't this pawn hanging? Well, no, it's not hanging. Knight takes e5 would be a huge mistake, but you tell me why. Let's discuss the ideas you guys have mentioned, because I've seen the correct answer and I have seen another move which is very tempting. Knight takes e6. You all realized that we want to open the d file and give mate on d8. But after knight takes e6, careful. Yes, we have opened the d file, but we are opening some escaping route for the black king. After f takes e6, he has somewhere to go with the king. So, wow, we wanted to give mate in 1 on d8, but this is not mate in 1 anymore. We can give this check. After king f7, I'm not sure that we have anything here as white. We have sacrificed the piece. And yes, this bishop could be hanging, but only could be, because let's not forget about tactical motives for the opponent too. So, when you see the motive, because I'm sure that you played knight takes e6 because you saw that we could give mate on d8. First of all, don't become too excited about the idea, because sometimes when we see something like, wow, I'm winning, we might take the decision too quickly. So just calm down and see how can you give this mate on d8. Knight takes e6, you should discard when you see that the pawn from f7 will capture the knight and give some space for the black king. So the correct way to carry this plan out is by playing knight b5. We are not capturing anything, but hey, we are attacking the black queen and we are threatening mate in 1. There's no queen retreat, there's no queen a5, there's no queen e7, no queen d6. Black can do nothing. He's either getting mated or his queen is lost. So beautiful mate, queen d8, thanks to this bishop on g5 and the open d file. Because let's just also remember that after pushing e5, and I haven't mentioned it, I don't know why I did not mention it, it's normal in the Sicilian that the d file is semi-open for white, but after pushing e5, d takes e5, hey, the d file has opened too. So I should have said that already at the beginning, that it's not only about the f file but also the d file. Knight e4, knight takes e5, as we have seen, is losing. That would be a huge blunder, but the other pawn, the other hanging pawn, can be taken, and black did capture it. He says, I'm 2 pawns up, what can you do? Queen takes a2, the rook is hanging on b1. Now what shall we do? Rook d1 seems to be the most natural move. We want to attack on the d5, so this knight cannot go away from d7 ever. We have so much attack on the d5 going on, but this is the if. If the d7 knight goes away, we can give mate on d8. What if the knight doesn't move away from d7? If he wants to develop the bishop and try to castle, maybe this position is also good for white. But here, black could still try. He can go back with the queen to d5, and you know that the queen can cover so many squares, so if this queen is placed in the center, that could make our task very difficult. So instead of this, after queen takes a2, what Tal did was to tell the black king, the black queen, sorry, that you will not join the defense. The king is on e8, the queen is cut from the king, cut away from the rest of the army. So yes, he can give a check on a1, but as I said, we may not castle. King f2, just like nothing happened, we don't castle, we have a king on f2. The position is quite open, but black cannot do anything. The only active piece he has is the queen, and that queen alone will not change the world. So it doesn't matter that we had to go king f2, and this queen is on a1 alone, it will not do anything. And also, he should watch out for discovered attacks. At some point, the knight cannot go away, not only because of queen d8 motives, but also because of the bishop b5 check motive. So rook b3 in this position, just making sure that this queen cannot go back to d5. And it's not only about the d5 square, but the rook move is of course against queen d5. He cannot go to a5 either because of the queen on d2. So the only way to try to go back would be by playing queen a4, but anyway, that's too much time, and black just really has to try to develop. Anyway, he gave a check, forcing our king to go f2. We cannot ever castle, we can never, but still this position is very good because after queen a4, as I said, you should get out of that of the back rank, because this bishop might just jump at some point and the discover attack will be very painful. But even like this, that there's no queen on a1, Tal played bishop b5, like, why? As I said, I would not ask the move itself, but I would ask, why on earth are we playing bishop b5? This bishop will be captured. What is the point of bishop b5? A takes b5, of course. Who would not accept a free piece when it's offered? And after knight takes b5, we realize that all that Tal wanted was the b5 square. He gave up the bishop in order to conquer the b5 square. After knight b5, we are threatening mate in 1. And, well, if we give mate, that's cool, but what if we don't give mate? f6 happened in the game, but also, what if knight a6, just to protect this square? How would you continue the attack here? This I will ask, because this is not the game. So if knight a6, how do you think white should continue his attack? Good job, everyone. The correct move is that we should keep on hitting knight d6 check, and after bishop takes, how to take back? I will not bring up the time to think because I will not even give you 5 seconds to tell me whether it's knight takes, pawn takes, or queen takes. Queen takes. Yes, knight takes d6 is a check, but the king goes to f8, and what's next? Sometimes giving check is not the best move. Knight d6 was the best in this position, but after getting rid of the dark square bishop of black, we should exploit the weaknesses on the dark squares. So queen takes d6 is not a check, but the threat of mate is a lot stronger. So what can he do against queen e7? Not much. He should play f6, but after queen takes e6, doesn't really matter where the king goes after queen d6 check. We just keep on giving checks to place the queen on where we wanted. We wanted to have the queen on d5 and then push e6 because the knight cannot go away. That's queen d8, back rank mate, and if he captures the bishop, then we thank him for opening the f file too. He has to resign. This position is completely lost. He will get mated in a few moves. So it's not good to play knight a6 because of knight d6, and remember that sometimes giving check is not the best. Here queen takes d6 was a lot stronger, weaknesses on the dark squares, so we exploit them. Instead f6 happened in the game, and after e takes, g takes f6, perhaps knight takes f6 would have been better, but it's easy to say it with the engines. I analyzed this position with knight takes, and then after g takes, knight c7 check and king f7. Here the rook is hanging, but the bishop is hanging too. Bishop takes f6 is what the engine says with an unclear position. I'm quite sure that Tal would have won this game anyway because he's attacking and he was just the very best in attack. He had such a good intuition. So I think even if black would have captured on f6 with the knight, this game would have ended as a victory for white because it's just so difficult to defend this position. After g takes f6, if you don't know the game, I give you a few seconds to think what would you play. And please, those of you who know it, don't say it. This is not an easy position, so don't be disappointed if you haven't found the move. I don't know if I would have found it, perhaps not. We would like to capture on f6, but if we go bishop takes f6 here, then our knight is gone. So we are just way too much material down for not enough attack. Yes, the king is still on e8 and we have some checks, but this is 2 pieces down. So if we want to play this and not knight takes f6, of course, we want to capture with the bishop. We would like to keep the knight on the board and have bishop takes f6, not knight takes f6. So in order to carry this out, we need to have the knight protected. And there's a piece that hasn't joined the game yet. There's just this poor, sad, disappointed rook on h1 that is shouting, please bring me to the game too. So that's what Tal did. He thought, I'm bringing the last undeveloped piece, and now I have my whole army going against the black king. Of course, before you play rook e1, you should make sure that you can give up the bishop, because that was hanging. So after rook e1, f takes g5, we will go knight c7 check, and it doesn't really matter whether the king goes to d8 or f7. If to king d8, then we don't care about the rook hanging on a8. We wanted to capture this e6 pawn, and now look at those arrows that I have drawn. We have the d file, the e file, the f file open, and all of them will be occupied by our major pieces. So this is just, I think, a beautiful demonstration of how you should open files when you are attacking a king in the center of the board. White has opened everything possible, and White has managed to bring all the heavy pieces to those open files. The other rook will come to f3 with a check if the king tries to escape via king f7. So this position is lost. It would be a mate in a few moves, and if after knight c7, king f7, then you see this rook that has gone from b1 to b3 and from there to f3. This rook swing is very typical in other attacking games too. After king g8, queen takes g5, bishop g7 and knight takes e6. It's needless to say that black cannot prevent mate. He has a check on c2, but that's it. That's all. He has to resign. So after rook e1, the bishop is untouchable on g5. He goes rook a6, trying to bring some defense, trying to protect his pawn on e6, but now, since the knight is protected on e4, we can go bishop takes f6 already, and this position is horrible. Black is lost. His king is on e8. Yes, our king is on f2, but remember that an exposed king like r1 on f2 can only be weak if there are attacking pieces, and black has no attacking pieces. The only piece that was close to the white king, at least gave a check, was the black queen, but one single piece doesn't give mate. So in this position, black doesn't have any good moves. If bishop c5 check, we will just capture that. So there's no attack, there's nothing. He played knight takes f6, and after knight takes f6 check, king f7, rook f3. Now once again the same open files, semi-open files. Our heavy pieces are great. The knight on f6 is about to jump. A discover check will be very painful for black, and also the b5 knight is very close to the attack. We can have maybe at some point knight c7, but for now we just have the queen and the rooks and this f6 knight perfectly placed, and black cannot do anything. He tried to bring his queen because you know that the queen is not only the best attacking piece but also very strong in the defense because it can control a lot of squares. So it's a good idea to bring your queen close to your king when your king is being under attack. I'm not saying that you should have a passive queen. What I'm saying is that you should control a lot of squares around your king, trying to protect your king in that way. But in this position, even this doesn't help because the position is just lost. Anyway, after e5, Tal gave queen d5 check. He calculated very precisely that he wanted to force bishop e6 first, and then he gives the discover check. So if king g6, knight takes e5, king g7, rook g3 check, and after queen takes g3, but if not queen takes, but let's say king f6, this position is horrible. I mean, you either drop the queen or get mated, or both. Bishop e7, queen takes h8, you got mated in the middle of the board in a few moves. So king g7, rook g3 check, after queen takes. The only thing you should be careful about is that, of course, we will not capture the queen right now because our queen is hanging, so we need to move the queen away with a check, and then we capture the queen. Black has a rook and a piece for the queen, but he will lose more material. The rook is hanging, the knight is hanging, the knight is pinned, so this position is lost. After rook b6, queen c7, black tried bishop c5, but the only thing Tal needed to do was to calculate knight takes d7 and after bishop c4, when you feel like, oh my, our king is in trouble, just rook e2, simply giving back some material because he's going to win more anyway. The rook is hanging and the bishop is hanging, this cover check, everything. So rook e2, and after bishop takes e2, after rook e2 the opponent resigned. But if bishop takes e2, king takes e2, and black has a few more checks, but after rook e3 you can even go king c4 if you want, and suddenly you have a very active king. No more checks. If rook e4 we capture the bishop, but if you want to play it safe you can just go king d2 and say that black has nothing in this position. He's going to drop more material and his king will be under attack, not our king. I hope that you like the games that we have seen today. I know that most of you have known these games. It was not about showing you these games like, oh wow, what a novelty, you need to guess the moves. The point was to see the reason behind those brilliant moves, why they were possible. And remember that our topic, attacking the uncastled king, and what are the rules when the opponent's king is in the middle of the board. So first of all, we wanted to open the position, and I think that from Tal's game, you can just very much see that it all happened. I wish I knew where I drew the arrows so I could go back to that moment. Here, yeah, here it is. So in this position, white is a piece down, but look at the d file, the e file, and the f file, and how our heavy pieces are placed. So rule number 1, open up the position if the opponent's king is in the center. I believe Tal has done it. He knew that he had to do this. Second, bring as many attacking pieces as possible, and you see that all the white pieces are attacking. So that is ticked on our list too. And third, and most important, act quickly, keep the initiative going. You cannot give time for your opponent to finish development, to bring more defending pieces. You need to act with the tempo, keep the initiative going, never give time to your opponent. That's why he sacrificed the piece, that's why he sacrificed pawns before. He wanted to open the position and act quickly. So bishop b5, just to get this b5 square for his knight and keep the initiative going. So as you can see, Tal, of course, knew about how to play when the opponent's king is in the middle of the board, and that's what we should learn from him and from Bobby Fischer. How to carry out these 3 rules and how to find brilliant moves, because these moves make a lot of sense when you know that it's because the opponent's king is in the center, it's because the opponent has wasted time grabbing pawns, it's because we have way more developed pieces than the opponent. So remember that tactical motives come usually in moments where you either have developed all your pieces, achieved the maximum you can get, so they are in their best possible location, and in that moment you should look out for something concrete. You probably have a tactical motive on the board. And second case is what happened in this game, because we haven't finished development. We had our king on f2, but still white has a lot more attacking pieces than black. So sometimes you will not finish development completely, but if you have a lot more active pieces than the opponent, then you can also look for a way to strike after queen a4, bishop b5, just to speed up this attack and have the knight on b5. So yes, we haven't castled and we have a rook on h1. We haven't managed to bring all our pieces yet, but we are already striking, we are already sacrificing, because we have a lot more attacking pieces than the opponent. Thank you so much for your attention, and I also want to thank you for the messages you send me, because even if I cannot respond to all the messages, I'm very happy for reading them. So in this video, I would like to thank everybody who has sent me any comments about the shows, about these shows, or about my video series with Sopiko, about the broadcasting in Leuven. Any positive feedback is always appreciated. You know that I take this show very seriously. I prepare it for a long time, and I'm trying to improve it as much as possible so that it's the best for you guys, so that you can learn as much from it as possible. That's why I appreciate all those messages that you send me, all the positive feedback. But I'm also thankful for those who send me sometimes criticism, because I know that there are always things that can be improved. So of course I'm happy about seeing constructive criticism, things that I can improve. So if you have any suggestions, what do you think could make the shows even better, then of course I'm all ears. I would like to know about those suggestions. So you can send me any of these messages or just to say hi to me. I will read all the messages that you send me. What I cannot do is to respond to them one by one, but I'm very thankful for you guys for being a fan of these shows, for being with me almost every week whenever we have a show. You're a great audience, and I think that's it. I wanted to thank you guys for all this. I also wanted to say that next week I won't be here because I'm going to a conference where one of the speakers is going to be Judith Polgar. I'm very excited about this conference. I will definitely Facebook post about it and tweet about it. So follow my social media networks if you would like to know more about the conference that I'm going to attend next week. And in 2 weeks' time, I will be back. I will tell you about the conference, and we will have the last session about attacking the Uncastled King. I will not tell you yet the players who will be the heroes of that show, but we will focus in that session on how to keep the opponent's king in the center, because we have spent 2 shows on seeing how these 3 principles, how those 3 rules work. Remember those 3, right? And the next one, in 2 weeks' time, will be about how to keep the opponent's king in the center. Some model games for seeing how to cut the king, how to make sure that he cannot castle. Once again, thank you for your attention, and I will see you guys in 2 weeks' time. Now stay here, because in roughly 40 minutes, Chess Explained will begin his banter blitz, and tomorrow you should also come back because Sopiko Guramishvili, Miss Tactics, will have her tactics show, and on Friday, I believe it's training with Niklas, so we have something for every day. You should definitely watch out what is announced on the Chess24 shows page and just join as many of these shows as possible, because I think they are a great way to improve your chess. It was Anna Rudolph for Chess24. I'll see you guys in 2 weeks' time, and have a lovely week and nice summer in the meantime. Play a lot of games and challenge Sopiko, challenge Chess Explained, and challenge Jan when he has a Banter Blitz session too. Bye bye.